told Janelle, something happened to my daddy. I heard loud booms. My daddy's hurt. My daddy's on the ground. She asked, are the police going to help my daddy?
That was just a clip of the opening statements in the trial that began today in Florida against Mario Fernandez, what law and crime is calling the Microsoft Executive Murder trial. Before I jump into the details, please, a major trigger warning. Also, this video is a little bit long because there are lots of moving parts. Mario is being charged with hiring someone to take the life of his wife's ex-husband. According to the state, this was a murder for hire plot that was very convenient for him. Let's get into opening statements. She starts off with sharing that on the night of February 16th, 2022, on Sanctuary Boulevard South. This was the site of the execution of Jared Brightigan. She shares that Jared had just dropped off his 2 children that he had with his ex-wife, Shanna Gardner, about 2 miles away north. She lived there with her new husband, Mario. He was on his way home to Nocatee, where he lived with his wife and 2 daughters. However, in that moment, he had one of his 2 daughters, the 2-year-old, with him. Minutes after leaving, he reaches that street. All of a sudden, there is a tire laying in the middle of the road. This is a residential area. It's surrounded by trees with 2 high curbs on each side. And as you can see here, there's lighting right now, but before there wasn't any at all. It was extremely dark. He puts his vehicle in park, he puts the flashers on and goes to move the tire. All of a sudden, from the darkness, steps out a man with a firearm and fires 4 times. 2 went into the car close to the 2-year-old and 2 went into Jared. He was face down on the pavement. He could not get to his daughter, of course, due to his injuries. 7 minutes pass by and finally cars start backing up behind him. A couple named Shane and Janelle, they go up to the car thinking, well, it must be a car accident. That is when they see the blood and they see this 2-year-old strapped in a car seat. They take out the child of the car seat. Shane hands the child to Janelle, which is what we heard that she told Janelle. He immediately calls 911. Now, they then share that a surveillance camera actually captures a figure with a gun and shooting 4 gunshots and then running away. As time passes, they're trying to figure out exactly what happened. No one thought that it was targeted initially, but they knew it wasn't a robbery because he still had his wedding ring. He had his Apple Watch. Then surveillance showed that minutes prior to him arriving, passing through, there were many cars with 0 obstruction, according to the police, who had the motive, who benefited from his death. After years of investigating, they came to realize that it was Shanna Gardner and her husband, Mario Fernandez. He is actually being charged with first-degree murder, premeditated murder, and solicitation to commit a capital offense. And it's going to take about a week and a half for them to show their evidence. Now, they go on to share that Jared and his ex-wife, initially they had a short courtship. They end up getting married in Utah. They're Mormons, and they moved to different places. Ended up in Jacksonville because they had twins. One of the twins needed to live at sea level. As time passes, Shanna doesn't want to be a Mormon anymore. She doesn't want her children going to the church versus Jared was very religious. So they end up getting a divorce. Apparently it was very bitter. However, they each get remarried. Shanna met Mario here at the gym. He was the maintenance man. And according to what he told police, married her to help her with the kids and to Jared. It was a deal that they had. So he grew up in Jax, apparently with no money. And she came from a very wealthy family. The 2 couples ended up co-parenting, but not amicably. They were in and out of court, talking about medical treatment, where the kids were going to go to school, who pays for this, who pays for that, can the child dye their hair, who pays for the oxygen tank. It got to a point where they were only communicating in writing. They would even have separate parent-teacher conferences as well as doctor's appointments. Nothing was good on either side. Shanna wanted to have full custody because she did not want the children at the church. He told the police that the kids were better off without their dad. Now, the defendant was actually a trustee to a trust that Shanna had. As I mentioned, Shanna's parents were very wealthy and had actually bought the house where she lived that close to Nocatee. For whatever reason, he was the trustee, and the money would not be released to Shanna unless she was not in court with the ex-husband. Now, according to the state, prior to Jared's death, they were planning to separate and divorce, which means that he would no longer live in this house. He would no longer drive his new truck that had been purchased for him. Coincidentally, they're still married, and a week after Jared's death, he was still the trustee to the account and ended up transferring $50,000 to himself. And that house that Shayna's parents bought, he got 50% when it was sold. Now, 6 months after Jared died, Shayna ends up moving to Washington with the kids. They talk about the fact that apparently it was a 10 millimeter that was used. Shell casings were left behind. They continue looking at surveillance and realize that there is a blue Ford F-150 with a tan running board slowing down that day, turning around, coming back, and then it looked as if they had a tire in the back. However, after the murder, when you see that F-150 again, without anything in the trunk bed. Now, they continue investigating and realize that he owns a home at 5239 Potomac Avenue. It was being used as a rental property and in fact managed by First Choice Rentals LLC, which is owned by him and Shauna. They arrive and they see a tire on the side that was being discarded. So they went ahead and took it, they tested it, and sure enough, the tire is the same as the tire that was left in the middle of the street. In fact, the manufacturer confirmed that it was made the exact same week in the exact same location. They are there talking, and here comes a man. His last name is Tenant, so that's what we're going to call him. And he used to be a tenant of his. He shares he's been staying on the sofa because he's homeless. He's also a felon and he works different labor jobs. Keep in mind that he makes about $15K a year. And guess who owns a Ford F-150 with a tan line on the side? Now, that truck was apparently inherited by him through his father. When they arrived and see the truck, they were able to get it and they tested the DNA. They went ahead and arrested him on non-related charges. Guess who decided to wipe his phone the moment that man was arrested on unrelated charges? Mario did. On top of that, they share, even though this man makes $15,000 a year, his checks were bouncing left and right because they were garnishing child support. He had 3 check stubs inside of the truck from Mario. What did they say on the check stub? It was called, one of them was landscaping, roof, and Kickstarter. Mind you, they said that when he would deal with other companies, he didn't just write that. He had invoices, all these other things. There's nothing backing up these payments. And furthermore, there's zero proof that they did any landscaping to the house or that if he ever purchased a Kickstarter. Then they checked Tenant's phone and he was 1 to 2 blocks away from the murder minutes after Jared's life was taken. They, in the surveillance, identified a black male walking from the crime scene wearing specific clothes. Guess what? Those clothes were taken from the home where Tenant was staying. At this point, they start reviewing and they realize that the only connection between the victim and Tenant is Mario Fernandez. Not only that, but they decided to check the GPS, and sure enough, that truck was seen 2 weeks prior to Jared's death close to his home. During that time, his cell phone wasn't working, but apparently it was left at the tenant's house. They go on to share that he has a friend named John Biggerstaff, who used to be a police officer. He was prosecuted for a felony. When he was prosecuted, guess what happened? He had to turn over his guns. What did he own? A 10 millimeter. They were friends for many, many years. And the night before Jared died, he was at his house. The morning after Jared died, he was also there. And when they called him to let him know that Jared had died, guess who was one of his first phone calls? Do they know where their 10 millimeter gun is at? Absolutely not. In fact, they have no idea where the gun is located. On top of that, they verify and realize that Tenant over here who had his pickup truck was walking around for a while at Jack's Beach and someone else had his pickup truck and was driving it around. Keep in mind that during the time of the murders, all of a sudden his phone didn't work, so he had no idea where he was, but you knew where he was before and after the murders. In the next video, I'll go into the defense's opening statements. What are your thoughts? I know it's a lot.